Good evening, depending on where you're joining from today. I'm Kyler Cheatham with Third Stage Consulting Group, and I am so excited about today's session where we talk about the power of perception and how that really is the superpower behind your digital transformation. So, thank you to the audience for joining us today. I will give my esteemed guests an opportunity to introduce themselves here in just a second. But just some logistics. We are live on where you're watching us right now. So, depending on the platform, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, you can type your questions in the comments. They are consumed by the system and we can see them here. So, we always love to engage with our audience in real time. So, feel free to respond or pop a question in there that I can have our guests address today. So, with that, I am very excited to bring Erin and Judith on for this important conversation. We talked a lot about who were the right assets for this. So, we brought on Judith, who's an industry thought leader around digital transformation, and also has a great technical background in implementing a variety of different systems. And then we have Erin from True Potential Group, who is a corporate culture and communication expert. So she will um, keep us honest about understanding how us technical and innovative resources respond to a digital transformation. So with that, Judith, I'll pass it to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kyler, and thank you for having me. So, I'm Judith O'Callaghan. I specialize in digital transformation. That's been my passion. I've been implementing different systems for over 20 years, and I learn ancient wisdom. So, I believe that there is wisdom in us and around us. Embracing the wisdom gives us the best possible outcome in what we choose to do. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you don't follow Judith on LinkedIn, highly recommend that for both of our guests. But she always has a little pearl of positivity, I call it, for the day with her great quotes and what she brings into the industry. So, how about Erin? We'll pass it to you.
Well, thank you so much. And you probably have seen my Chief Happiness Officer, the Golden Retrievers, also joining. He has a lot that he wants to share today on the perceptions of digital transformation. So that's George. So thank you so much for having me. And my specialty is communication and people and how we are able to communicate effectively to influence and impact and drive change and get better results and enjoy what we do every day. So that's my driver is communication so we can be more fulfilled and productive and work and at home. So thank
Excellent.
you.
Well, so excited to get in today's conversation. It, really spans from the conception to completion of what it means to have a new technology or any strategic change within your business or organization. So I'm going to start with you, Judith, to really talk about why is perception of a digital transformation within a business so important in strategic decision making?
So this is a very interesting question, right, Kyla? And in 2024, a lot of organizations will be embarking on digital transformation. That's what our experts are predicting. So one thing our industry or the world has been very lucky so far, it's been peaceful for the last 20, 19
Mhm.
years. The number of changes that we have undertaken as a community, or especially as a digital community, though it's huge, it has been very measured, controlled, and managed. And we are coming to a point in time in the history where there is a lot of change happening around us, in us, and including the way we think and work. For example, COVID has been a very good disruptor in different ways, and it has
Mhm.
changed the way we actually viewed technology and the way we viewed work and a lot of things as well. So with 2024 and beyond, there
Mhm.
is a lot of ERPs that may come to an end of life, or
Mhm.
systems that we are using for over 20 years that may require change. And also, the businesses are evolving, so they might embark on a completely different journey that is right for the business. So, change for us is inevitable. And
Mhm.
it's all about how we embrace the change and capture it. And also, the flip side of change, as Erin and Kyler yourself would know really well, is that it's a very nervous thing for any organization or individuals to embark. Even as individuals, any change, not every change is viewed in a very positive way. We
Mhm.
might all have our nervousness about some type of change, though it's positive for us. So, propelling that to an organization. So, if we want to set the organization up for success, it is about the perception and setting the
Yes.
understanding of what we are embarking, right? So that's why I think this is such an important topic at this point in time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you hit on a few things that I really want to dig into there. And we'll kind of come back to the future state of what that looks like for ERPs or a lot of systems that are going through end of life, even AI. But I want to turn to Aaron and really dig into. We kind of set the scene here. We have a big change in the organization, whether it be a new ERP, a best of breed selection, AI within the organization, new automation in the processes. And we see a very well intentioned executive team that has made this amazing decision for their organization. However, the digital transformation often goes off the map because it wasn't communicated well. So now we have this perception in an organization, whether it's true or not. How do leaders really influence perception within their organization?
Leaders influence perception so greatly. And so it depends on where the leader is within the organization as well. So, one thing with digital transformation, with leadership, is all the leaders that are impacted have to be involved, and they have to have the ability to have this self awareness to understand how they, as a leader, are impacting perception. So, that's the first thing. If they don't have the self awareness of how they're doing it, then an organization is not going to probably have a successful adoption. So, with that, they've got to have the right mindset. They've got to be able to communicate effectively on a regular basis in a manner that is not disrupting the role of the individuals that don't really need to be that heavily involved until they need to be that heavily involved. So I think at the end of the day, it's that self-awareness, the mindset, and are they effectively communicating the why behind it and the greater impact and being inconvenienced to go through this transformation. It's for the greater benefit for the individual and for the organization.
Absolutely. That why is really that motivator, right? That key understanding. And that's why that employee is going to work harder. So when we kind of wrap up the perception conversation, go into more of the psychology of change, I'm curious, Judith, when we have a perception within an organization that a digital transformation may fail or may not be able to be absorbed and maximized effectively, how, as the project team, can you ensure that you're actually set up for success? Maybe we go from leadership to project team.
Absolutely. And that's a very good question, right? So if we look at the landscape as well, especially in the recent past, a lot of transformation projects have been run as technology projects.
Hmm.
As a result, the adoption to everything else, communication and everything else had been a problem, which impacted the stakeholders, which then impacted uh, the clients and other people, which has caused a lot of problems.
Hmm.
So as a result of this, the organizations have had a bumpy road. And now the problem is those who are embarking on this transformation journey or a technology change view it as a hard thing to do because the people who have gone ahead of us have reported all these things. So, on the other hand, we have this beautiful experiences given to us by different parties and everything else. So, when we set up a program, we set it up for success. So, the first thing is to understand what we are doing
Hmm.
and the why behind the what, as Erin said. And this is something that is forgotten and not very well understood many times. And I was talking to a colleague sometime yesterday, and we
Hmm.
talked about this understanding the why. And that unravels so many things. It also talks about the purpose of why we are doing it and who we are doing it for. And ultimately, the big picture, it gives us the big picture of and that carries the message forward. So it's
Hmm.
best to take time to understand the why, and it'll inform the what, and then the who we need to communicate, who we need to involve, and then we can put together a structured approach to that project or the program of work. And this
Yeah.
fundamental work is so important, and I call it the conscious pause. And whatever
I
stages
love
or whatever methodology we adopt, it all recommends that, but highly ignored at many points. We want to start running with the program, but it's best to have that conscious pause and understand the why behind the what, which informs it sets us up for success.
Absolutely. And that fundamental planning stage is where you're able to set KPIs, right? Whether you're able to see, like, what do we actually want? We've got the why, we've got the what. what do we want to gain out of this project? So real quick, I'm going to just turn to the audience. So we would love to hear where you're joining us from today. So if you can pop that in the comments. I know we have some questions coming in already, so I'll pop some up on the screen. I have to pop this one up from Dan real quick that talks about how Judith, like, that's why I love your podcast, Judith, because your
Oh,
voice,
thank
which
you.
Erin is a voice like expert. So you drop my blood pressure every time. So thank you for
Oh,
bringing that piece.
Dan, thank you so much.
I know.
That's powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for blessing us with that. So I'm gonna go to this question from Dan. This is for Erin. Why is it so important in setting an organizational change management plan and communication strategy for any project, really any change in an organization?
So the why is so incredibly important. Being a sales leader for over 20 years in pharma and biotech, I've been involved in so many digital transformations. And at my level, I was brought in early, but the big why is, how is it impacting the individual at the end? How is
Mhm.
why are we doing this? What is the reason behind it? And we can do the bigger picture why, and we see that from the top down, but sometimes at the very top, they forget to understand, and the why is going to be different for each role and the way they're utilizing the technology. So
Mhm.
the big picture why needs to be broken down so the individual that is using it has the driver and the motivation to change their behavior and go full on in the adoption of it. And I've seen it go very, very wrong. And I've been part of that where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. It's not benefiting me. It's taking time away from my customers, which is ultimately reducing my results. So until they force me
Mhm.
to adopt it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's the why is so important, because it's the behavior change will not happen
Mhm.
unless they have a why.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one part that we see a huge failure point. I promise, since I got roasted on the internet this week about talking about failures, I will not talk about that many this week, but we will learn from those.
Yeah.
So when we look at where a project can be optimized, right? We see it in that we call it the third stage, right? The user adoptions phase. So Judith, how do you ensure in this perception that you're taking into account that end user and building out a user adoption strategy that's actually going to maximize the value of your technology? Because you could have the shiniest, most intuitive tech, but if your users aren't actually engaging with it, then it's just creating that technical debt and additional cost centers for the business.
Exactly right. So, a beautiful point that you're bringing to the surface, Kyler, and not necessarily understood or talked about. And one of the experts I was talking to yesterday made a very good point, and we were understanding a few case studies to see what we can do better and set things up for success.
Mhm.
Because most times when we see something that's not going well, it's on the third stage. That's when we realize, and it's too
Yeah, too late.
difficult to change it because we've made the investment, we have made whatever we need to do to be able to do that. So, but on the other hand, we now have the data and the lessons from this, so we can set it up for success. So, for example, I'll give you a case study, right? So, a company was that we were closely involved was implementing. Warehousing solution and also a planning solution. So
Mhm.
it was the change was understood or understood at that point in time, and
Mhm.
then everybody had a very good communication training plan, and people were all brought in to from different places to be able to train and use and everything. It was a fantastic success. 2 weeks after the system was actually live, there were challenges from the clients to the warehousing people to supply chains getting locked and everything else. So the real problem in this case, when we did the deep analysis, was back then or before this change happened, planners were actually planners. They were sitting in a warehouse or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and they were planning on what's coming in, what's going out. So in this case, after this adoption of the technology, or after we put the technology in, every warehouse person is keying in data, and the endpoints are informing the planning. So the role of the planner as such has changed, and the number of data points that is coming into the planner to be able to make a decision have changed. So it's instead of working with 5,000 data points, I'm just giving an example, this individual planner is expected to work with 50,000 or 5
Yeah.
million, 500 data points. So we are all human end of the day, and this is a part of change that was not understood. and it had multiple implications. Yes, now it's been identified, it's fixed, and everybody is
Right.
getting what they wanted out of it. That's fantastic. But this is an important why, and especially when we look at change, think about how the role is changing and evolving in the future. So it's like, yes, it is a beautiful technology and it's coming to us. So what does this actually mean for this person or for this role or for the organization as such? And it also brings the avenues of who we can serve better. For example, with that data points, it gave us a whole bunch of insights on where the stocks are held and where
Mhm.
too much inventory are, and also in terms of scheduling and planning. It made a huge difference to people. But these are all hidden use cases that came up to life
Right.
when we did that investment. Yeah, so this is for me, it's a very personal journey that gave so much insights. Yes.
Wow, that is, and thank you for sharing that. That's a really
Mm.
interesting case study and showcases the importance of really kind of assessing your kind of end user and what that's going to be as far as their experience in that fundamental planning stage that you mentioned earlier. So, Erin, kind of pivoting on that and building on it, when we have a heavy front end workforce, maybe we have a call center, maybe we have somewhere we have a lot of employees. How do we understand what motivates those end users so that we as project leaders can ensure that we understand how we're going to have them adopt and understand this why behind the project?
I love this question. I love this question because it goes back to your job description, the competencies and behaviors when you're hiring individuals. So it goes back to you have the foundation of that to even understand the types of individuals that you're hiring and the skill sets and the behaviors that they already have. Then what I truly believe is we all have innate tendencies. We have them. We have capacity and we have preference. So if you can actually take data points from people, say in a call center, say there's a call center with 300 people, and they have the ability to take an assessment when they go onboarding. There are now platforms that you can use
Mm.
to take those data points and formulate them into practical tips. So, for example, how does this individual typically react to change? So now you start to better understand that we may need to start earlier. We may need to have one on ones. We may have some skeptics, and that's great. I want to involve the skeptics
Mhm.
and have them give me devil's advocate in the decision making process. So I really think it begins at the foundation. And if organizations don't have that, there's ways to do it. And I
Mm.
truly believe it's with personality assessments, taking a step back from the leadership perspective and understanding everyone reacts to change differently. And you need to adapt and be able to put a strategy in place where those individuals have enough time to process and understand and then adopt. So
Absolutely. Very well said. I think the thing that I always find so ironic is when people think that change management or company culture is not measurable. What most it is a data-driven approach. I can't tell you the amount of times we've gone in and done an organizational assessment to assess the readiness of the culture. And a lot of times you get, feedback from executives, "Oh, our culture's ready. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that." And then once we do the assessment, we have all of these red areas of potential resistance, and they are shocked that those exist and that they didn't have the awareness around that. So it's so important to have that structured data approach, whether you're doing an OCM assessment or you have that upfront data around what that looks like as far as company culture and motivators. That makes the job easy, hopefully, right?
can I just add one thing to that? Because I
Oh,
laughed
sure.
so hard because I'm not a technical expert. It's communication in people. That's my skill set. So there's been so many times. So if you were to ask me to do what you do and have the experiences that you have had, I just don't. So, but what I have found in regards to that change is the individuals that are making the decisions that are more driven by process than they
Mhm,
are people. So if they don't
Mm.
understand that they will not be able to get the results that they want without the people and the people trusting their decisions,
mhm.
it doesn't
Mm.
matter. It does not
Exactly.
matter. And it's like, let's everyone stop and remember, it doesn't
Mm.
matter. You could have the best system in the world. If your people don't trust you and you're not leading in an effective way, forget it. Don't waste the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
Judith,
very
do you wanna
fundamental,
respond
isn't it?
too?
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. So this is something very fundamental, and we tend to ignore it or put it away or something. So, but this is fundamental. We are humans and we follow humans. So there's a lot of data on positive intelligence or any form of
Mhm.
things that we follow on to say that teams that are positive are 30%, 30 to 50% more productive, because we work from a different part of our brain when we are productive, and the calm part of the brain produces results, and we are able to communicate with each other with micro neurons, or sorry, what's that called? Uh,
We wouldn't know
the
what it was
neurons and all that, whatever it's called. So yeah, the thing is, we are able to communicate with each other better. So
Yeah.
understanding the why and explaining the why, as you said, it's so much important. And also, just noted a point, which is change fatigue. So when
Mhm.
the organization is going through multiple changes at one time, when people have been through this and you're introducing one more change to it, there is also a fatigue that is attached to it. Oh, here we go, one
Mhm.
more in my backpack. So it's like, how do we mitigate that? And that's the Rubik's cube that we are trying to solve, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting concept of
Mm.
change fatigue, because that can be the hardest perception to overcome within a workforce, is when you have too much change or change that was poorly communicated. Even if it was years ago, people don't forget, right? They don't
Oh
forget
yeah.
that that's what happened the last time you try that. So I'm going to bring up a question from the audience to kind of touch on this, because I think it's an interesting shift in perception for what our software vendors or any type of vendor kind of wants you to think about an implementation. And this one's from Dan on LinkedIn. Thanks for all the great questions, Dan. So he wants to know, do you always say that an ERP implementation must be done in the context of a digital transformation, or sometimes do you recommend a brownfield upgrade or lift and shift without a full transformation? So I know I want to get your guys' feedback on that, but my thoughts on this is, a digital transformation is an industry buzzword, right? A digital transformation means whatever you need it to mean for your organization. It's a strategy. And that piece of it, a lot of times you'll see with systems or new policies, it's just an upgrade. It's just a little change, no worries, no need, no need to worry about it. And so I think when we do an upgrade or a lift and shift, that's a really easy way of saying we don't need things like change management. We don't need things like assessing our communication plan. That's just my thoughts on that. But I'll turn to you guys. Do you want to address, Judith, since you are
Yeah.
the most
Yeah, yeah.
technical, probably?
Okay. So thank you, Kyler. And Dan, that's a beautiful question, right? So, and especially with brownfield. So, Erin, brownfield is when people try and migrate the
Mhm.
same thing from one technology to another technology because it's faster or easier, or it gives different business benefits. So, brownfield is one of the highly misunderstood from a change perspective. Most organizations that I've worked with believe that it's easy. Yes, it is, of course, easy, because you're going from, nothing. From a change perspective, it's one of the simplest thing to embark. There is not a lot of um, change to it. But on the other hand, there is also an element of change to it, because I'll give you an example that I was discussing with another colleague, which is, we did a brownfield for one of the companies, and the performance is much, much better.
Mhm.
Everyone was celebrating great. What it also meant was the data or the problems were coming much faster than it was earlier, and people were experiencing a lot of P1s and all the challenge that came with it as well. This is because the system's processing faster, and a lot of problems get identified faster. So
Mhm.
what it means is, we need a bigger technology team to be able to handle those problems and address and get to those people who are having those problems. So this is a part of change which may not have been understood properly till we had that data or had that industry experience. So this is the subtleties of any transformation, right? So it could be the simplest thing, or you're just switching two systems, and it's going to be faster and easier and better. Fine. But there is also an element of change that goes with it.
Mhm.
It's a good change, and we embrace it, and we do it in a very positive way. And it's all about being prepared. So when we're going on a hike, uh, I love hiking, by the way. So it's all about understanding what is your track. And so you know what to pack, and you have enough snacks for the way, or whatever it is. So it's
Yeah.
just about taking that pause and understanding what you need in our backpack.
100%. And
Yeah.
so what do you think, Aaron, about kind of those micro changes where you may have an outside vendor, you may have a business leader that's trying to say, this is not an impactful change. We don't actually really need to go into communication strategic planning. What's your reaction to that?
I want to know who's making the decision on the change. And are they the individuals that are the right people in the seat to make the decision that there needs to be a change? And are they bringing the people in that are actually using the
Mhm,
platform? And is the change needed? So for me, there should be a high level of communication on a regular basis. So
mhm,
all parties that can make the decision on change are part of it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is any type of change, people are going to react differently.
mhm,
So to me, even if it's just a few, from my experience, a lot of CRMs in my lifetime,
mhm,
and no big deal. We're just going to change the way that you input your clients. We're just
mhm,
going to change the information that you need to input so we can collect the data points. That's a really big deal to an
mhm,
individual that goes out in the field to sell. They come back and it's just muscle memory. So for them, it's a major change. But from someone higher up that's not doing that day to day, it might just be a lift and switch and really easy. So any change is change and it
mhm,
needs to be effectively communicated. And I'm going to keep going back. If you don't have a company culture of trust, it doesn't matter if it's one field that's changing or it's a whole entire system that's changing.
mhm.
It's probably not going to go all that well. So why don't you take a step back, address the people issues and the culture issues before you invest in doing a major overhaul. So I know that was long-winded, but I hope that helps.
Oh
More.
yeah, that's
It's
well
beautiful.
said. Yeah, and I think it brings us kind of into this other segment that I definitely want to ask you about when we talk about kind of trending technologies or even trending business. Right now, as we're in early 2024 when we're recording this. So AI, right? AI is on the forefront of everyone's mind. And I recently did a keynote at a Women in Tech conference on the Terminator effect, the perception of AI. So we've kind of gotten this, whether it's pop culture, whether it's all kinds of different things, this perception of this faceless boogeyman and this fear around artificial intelligence. So that's something that companies now need to overcome. And that's fundamentally the most vulnerable part of being, an adult human, which is your livelihood, right? Your job, providing for your families or anything else that you need to do. So, Aaron, I'm going to go to you on this one first. What is the importance of kind of reframing that new technologies could have positive opportunities, that you kind of have to get over the hurdle of what people think when you hear words like automation and that fear and anxiety?
Absolutely. When you say AI, a lot of people don't even know what it is. They don't
Mhm,
have any experience with it. So first, it's not making the assumption, and it's bringing it back down to the basics of why the change is and correlating it to change that has been successful in the past that may have inconvenienced the individuals, but look at the success that we had. And now this is something that is different yet similar, and that you may be inconvenienced. It may be some discomfort as you're managing the way that you react to change, the day-to-day things that you need to do. But this is why we believe in it. And this is how we think it may impact you and your role in the company as a whole. I think what happens and why people become so fearful is because they don't understand.
mhm,
So they need to have that clarity. And I'm sorry, all you technical experts out there, sometimes you got to just reduce it and be a little bit more basic in the way that you're explaining it. We don't need all the details. We don't need all the details. And it's overwhelming to individuals that don't do what you do every day. And you've got to understand, just bring it down to the basics, give the need, and tie it back to a successful change that was implemented before. And that's my opinion on that one.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of technical experts, Judith, when we talk about this perception in an IT terminology, it kind of is amplified, the fear and anxiety around that, because, a lot of jobs in a modern IT department will change.
Yep. And that's a beautiful point, right? So just like with any technology, when automation started, there was a lot of nervousness. So
Mhm,
I was studying the impacts of these booms of technology impact that affected us over the past and how we reacted as humans. Yes, when automation started, there was a lot of nervousness. So at that point in time, I was working in a very data-based or a payroll-based
mhm,
company, and there was this lot of fear on, do we actually have our jobs and all that stuff. But on the other hand, the flip side of it, it was really positive. People were able to take advantage of the automation, they were able to serve more clients, the errors got picked up a lot quicker, and all that good stuff that came up with it. So in my opinion, and this is purely mine, and we have to see how AI evolves. Yes,
mhm,
there is challenges to it, to see how AI evolves, because it's at a very initial stage, and it's a baby, and we need to
mhm,
guide it on how we need to grow that baby, and we can make it work the way we want it to work. And the flip side of AI, the way I see it, is it gives us a lot of analysis, or the capability to do a lot of analysis and insights that we previously didn't have before. And what does this mean for us? And what
mhm,
does this mean for our world? So, those are the things that need to be explored. And we as humans have an opportunity to guide that technology
mhm.
to give us the outcome that we need. So what you plant, or what where you water grows, right? So
Yeah,
we keep watering the right thing, and we get the outcome that we need, that makes our world kinder and better. So
yeah.
take away the perception of it's difficult and all that, you know, other
Oh,
things that
absolutely.
go with it. Yeah.
That is very, very thoughtfully said.
Mm.
Absolutely. I think that's the piece that we really will have to kind of move together as a society, and hopefully we can do it as beautifully and as positively as you just said. And so, Erin, I'm curious, as a leader or a leadership coach, and you may have a department that's implementing some sort of AI, autonomous system, automation. So roles are going to change. What do you, as a leader, owe your team in communicating, hey, Erin, your job role is going to change?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, people are resistant to change based on fear. I mean, that's just we're afraid because we don't have all the information. So with AI, I think it is scary. So I think there needs to be vulnerability from leadership. And it needs to be that we're, like you said, we're doing this together. And there are some gaps that we don't know yet. And here's what, right now, here are the expectations of the changes in your role. And here may be in the future, but you can't go too deep because people get fearful. And
Mhm,
people may think with AI, is my job going to be eliminated? Am I not going to be needed anymore? Now they're distracted. They're
mhm,
not being productive, and potentially they're becoming totally disengaged. And it's because it's just a lack of communication with the leader to that individual or to their team. So it's a high level of communication. It's one-on-ones as well. And give the individual time to talk. Don't just put on a slide deck and present. Have a dialogue, like, what are you afraid of? Like, what are your, and you don't have to say, what are your thoughts on this? Help me understand. What are you thinking? Don't tell them, let them tell you, and you comfort them and lead them. And I think that's how you have to do it. So at the end of the day, all this is communication, trust, and human connection.
mhm. Amen. Absolutely. That's so true. I will say, and this is a total stereotype,
Mm.
but in the IT world, we are not always great communicators, especially, leaders that have been in the industry for many years. So I'm curious, Judith, because you are such a unicorn in being,
Oh,
incredibly mindful and also incredibly technical. What would be your advice to IT leaders to create that empathy when having that conversation that Erin just referenced?
that's beautiful question, Kyler. Then thank you. So yesterday, or few days back, I was pondering on this question, right? So most of us come to IT, or we are geeks kind of thing, and we like our own space, and we like to do things our own way and evolve ourselves as humans, and we are very productive, and that's what we are very good at what we do, and that's why we end up in our roles, and sometimes we become leaders, and we manage people and stuff. The skills that we need every day is evolving, and our IT is one of those things where
Mhm,
our jobs have changed drastically
mhm,
over periods of times. When I look at it, in some cases, I have worked with people from 65 countries, very different time zones. And
Mhm.
sometimes I don't even know their name. I go by their initials and all that stuff. But the most important thing is the teams that have been productive, the teams that I still remember and work with, are the ones that where the human connection is valued. And I've been blessed with leaders who have taught me that
Mhm.
at my early career, and I got the best out of them. And now that we are growing as leaders and as we are growing as an industry, so it's about how we share and how we give and how we support each other, because every individual needs is different, and this all makes us a better society and how we communicate. And standard hierarchy of the roles doesn't exist anymore, especially
Mhm.
in IT. We all work with what we are good at, and we all play different roles in different programs of work that we are involved, and we try and add value. So it's all about opening up and being open to that mirror neurons and being open to that communication. So my suggestion to any IT leader for that matter is know yourself,
Mhm.
because no one's perfect, and know your team and know the organization.
Mhm.
And that's when the merge, or the miraculous heart and the head merge, that happens, and you can be productive in the way you want to be productive. So that is my take on it, and that's my take for every organization as well. Take the conscious pause and know yourself before embarking on any journey,
Mhm.
and choose the outcome that is right for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. The conscious
Yeah.
pause. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. And quickly to turn to the audience, if you could drop in the comments, what is the number one characteristic that a leader needs to have in a digital transformation? So just pop it in the comments and we'll kind of take a little poll here. Is it empathy? Is it accountability? I would love to hear from our audience what you really think it is. Maybe we can share some of those. But moving on to what can we do to create and shape this digital narrative going into 2024? Great time for intention setting, right? To actually influence effective digital transformation projects. And I think, in my opinion, that starts with corporate culture. And I want to turn to you, Erin, and say, how do you assess the culture? And on that question, is it possible to change a culture that's experiencing some toxicity?
I love this question. It's complicated. I'm an optimist. My personality type is an ENFP. So I think yes, you can change anything if you have the right people in the right seats. So it really, at the end of the day, company culture comes from each individual. So if you have a company culture where you're hired like, this is our culture, it's like, is it? I haven't even bought into that. I haven't even contributed. So I think it's really understanding, is the company culture and the way that it is being shared, is it bought in by all parties, and how are you holding people accountable to it, and letting people know that culture, they can make a change every single day on an individual level. So
Mhm.
it's complicated in the sense, if you have an organization that believes that their company culture is great. You mentioned this earlier, Kyler, or excuse me, I'm Judith, that disconnect when it's like, yeah, they're ready for the adoption. They're ready for the adoption. I can tell you right now that that company culture probably is a little bit frayed, because the top to the bottom views it very differently. So what I found to be really successful at a large enterprise is they had monthly culture roundtables, and they did cross-functional roles. They were very small. And this is pre-COVID. Now they're doing it virtually, where people got together and they talked about it from different, so they weren't siloed. And it
Mhm.
was accountability where there was a call to action. So rather than complaining about a company culture, they don't listen to us, they don't trust us, they don't empower us, all of these types of things. You can change that. Don't do it top down. Create a culture where people are able to change it to what they want it to be. So I'm so passionate about this, because
Mhm.
it just, you can't just stuff culture down someone's throat.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Well, and people try to too, and I think they
Yes.
do it, like, well-intentioned as well, and you kinda have to, like, that's why we have people like you, Aaron, to say, like, "Hit the brakes, man, like, we can do this, but not that way. Not that way."
Yeah. Well, you have to be brave. You have to
Yeah.
hire people that are courageous to speak up,
Mm.
to be able to say to 3 and 4 layers above them, "This is
Mhm.
not working. It's impacting the results. I'm bringing this to you because we have put out to our shareholder, whatever it might be. We've got to meet this goal, and we're on the ground, and we're not going to be able to meet it. And I wanted to share that with you because you have the power to change. So the intention is because I am passionate, engaged, and I want it to be better. Don't take this as a criticism that I'm complaining. I'm coming with a solution. But if you don't have a company culture where the people that are really impacting the results can speak up, then you're going to have that disconnect.
Absolutely. That's 100%. And Judith, turning to you, I feel like you yourself are a great
Mhm.
case study for this because you have such an IT technical following, but a lot of the content you post really does focus on culture. The idea of just being a good member of society, a good member of the network, and a good member of the community. So how do you feel like these human skills are really important to develop in a technical space?
So this is an interesting thing, right? So over the last year, one thing I've realized is I come from a trading family, a trading background.
Mm,
So the generations of my ancestors and those I
mhm.
know have traded across different cultures and everything, and they've run enterprises. So what I was talking to a friend of mine who has inherited her family business, which has run successfully for over 150 years, and they're
Wow.
legends. So I go, what is that makes it different, and
Mhm,
how have they evolved and how have they changed, and they're still impacting positively in the world. So it comes to the very fundamental thing, right? As Erin said, it's trust, and how do you build that trust, and how do you keep that company culture active, and how do you it's not just about shareholders, or it's not just about that. It's about the how do we create a better society. And for me, digital transformation is just a vehicle, and
mhm.
what we do is much more powerful than all of us put together. So we have a higher purpose and higher need that we are all fulfilling in this world. So uh, for me, it comes down to very basics, which I try to understand, implement. So it's like knowing yourself and giving the courage for yourself and others to be themselves and understand what is important for those they serve. So if everyone's equipped to serve those they serve better, we end up creating a better world. So it could be a technology, it could be understanding of change, it could be understanding of their roles, as you
Mhm.
rightly said, Erin. It could be any information. So equip people in the way they need to be equipped so they can serve others better. And it comes to technology, or it comes to anything we do. Maybe I'm making it very, very simple. So that has been my take on it so far. So happy, productive teams, and how do we create that? And that's the puzzle that we are all evolving in our lives at different points in time. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. And I
Yeah.
think I'm going to show this comment here from Patricia, excuse me, on LinkedIn. And it says an open mind helps with every step of digital transformation, regardless of your role. Couldn't agree more. So I'm wondering what happens when you have an executive, right? You purchased $100 million SAP system or anything like that. Now go implement it. How important is it to have that open door policy in order to give feedback on how the implementation is going? And I mean, for you, Erin, we can even say how important is that open mind or that open, transparent communication when you need to bring a problem to leadership, when you need to bring a change to leadership? How critical is that in company culture?
It's absolutely critical, not just for digital transformation, but Judith, I love the fact that you keep bringing it back to people being fulfilled and doing things for the greater good. So it's okay to have fun at work, everyone. It's okay to have fun. So digital transformations can actually not be so scary. So going back to your question, Kyler, I think it's critical, and you've got to be able to create ways for people to give feedback. So let's give an example. You've got a company that their company culture is broken and there isn't a lot of trust. So can you expect people to just raise their hands after you come on and say, we really need your feedback? No, but you can do ways. I worked for an organization and we did it anonymous. Like we want it to be productive, and we want you to feel that you are able to share this feedback and any solutions that you might have. So I think it's one, continue to go back, Judith, both and I say this, is know yourself, know
Mhm.
the team, and know what the culture is, and create means for feedback based on where you are as a culture. If there's not trust, there's probably still ways to get it, but it's not going to be as easy. So you've got to set up a platform or some way where people feel safe to give feedback, But at the end of the day, are you hiring the right people? And are you using this digital transformation and the way people are responding to it to see if you have the right people in the right seats? So it's really important. And that can go back to, and I said it before, do you have a job description that aligns with competencies and behaviors? Are you training the leaders to be able to interview in an appropriate manner to get the people on the bus that align with your values? And you can execute so much better. It starts from the hiring process. So
100%, absolutely. And Judith, from a technical standpoint too, how important is it for you as a project team to be able to go to leadership and say, this implementation is in the red? Like we are in trouble and we
Oh,
need support.
this is kind of very, a common problem that, sadly, a common problem that most program teams or project teams face, right? So
Mhm,
it could be implementing a technology. Somebody thinks it's a great technology to buy and they buy it and do it. And also, there could be things that somebody bought a technology that is not needed, or there is other things in the organization
mhm,
which is fulfilling that role. So, how do you communicate that message? And sometimes people talk to us, when they talk to us, they've tried most other means of addressing it. And so sometimes when they come to us, it's just a matter of sit down and have a direct conversation.
mhm,
Is your organization really ready? And if you're putting people through this thing just to show some value or whatever it is not going to give you the results you need. That's great. So
mhm,
it's bad news doesn't get better with time. So it's better to tell people first when there are red
mhm,
flags. So that's always been my approach and most people's approach. So you lay that on the table, and then if they still want to go ahead, help them manage it in a way which gives a better outcome for everyone. So
mhm,
sometimes there is a, you know, you're better off terminating it now and come back and revisit it. That's a conversation as well. And sometimes you can say, hey, you bought it for this, but it can also do X, Y, and Z. There
mhm,
are cases where we have unearthed that benefit because there was a product that was bought and there was for a different purpose, and the purpose was being achieved. But that product was also able to attract a different, completely different meaning to what it was
mhm,
originally intended. So it was like, yeah, you can explore that. And the other one is could be, yes, it's a great product, great, pause it for a year or something.
yeah.
To when your organization is ready, come back and revisit it. So it's like putting my best dress away for the right occasion. So
Mhm.
it's kind of that approach.
Yeah, I love that approach. That conscious pause,
Yeah,
right? Your conscious pause of like what
exactly.
as a business leader that's
Mm,
making strategic decisions, is this the right time? Because we all know that
mm,
technology is not a silver bullet. It is not going to fix a broken culture and it is not going to fix broken processes. That is something that we need to be able to do as leaders. So we have a great question here, Erin, and I want to focus on it on you with it. So when it comes to that change in company culture that you were kind of talking about, and that one who brings a lot of criticisms to maybe a leadership project team, all those types of things, how do you motivate an employee in that scenario that might be kind of getting dumped on, right? About all these criticisms, this hard feedback and that type of thing. How do you motivate that employee to keep working hard and being productive for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with criticism, there's two sides to it. I celebrate when you have created a culture where people feel open enough to criticize, and hopefully the expectation has been set that the criticism comes with a solution. So, but if you're the individual that continues to get the criticism because you're driving the change, it's having that awareness and being able to have the open communication and listen and not get defensive and
Mhm,
understand it's not about you. It's a technology. It's a
yeah.
technology that you are tasked to implement. You didn't even create the technology. So I think first and foremost, the self-awareness, are you taking it personally? And can you help and detach yourself from that and recognize how you are emotionally reacting or responding to the criticism? And is the criticism actually helpful? Or do you have people that are criticizing because that's just who they are and they're complaining? That's a different discussion.
mhm,
That's a coaching opportunity. Now, if people are criticizing and it comes with a solution to make it better and you're taking it personally, that's something on the leader or the individual and how they're reacting to criticism. And that's a self awareness journey into how am I reacting? Why am I reacting this way? And what can I do about it to make sure that I am focused on the information that can hopefully create change instead of just a criticism? I was so sensitive to criticism before, and one of the things that worked for me is when I would accept criticism from others. This is my name tag. It's not
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's a
that's such a
role that
great
I'm doing. And it was just a really visual way for me. We've probably all some point in our life
Mm.
worn a name tag. So just remember, it's not about you. It's about your name tag and your role. And just it's business. Let's move forward.
100%, absolutely. And I know, Judith, you kind of have that authentic self approach too, because until, as a young leader myself, until I really started doing that soul searching and that work on my own self to understand how am I reacting to this and how am I creating an air of being transparent and approachable. So that's, one thing that is incredibly powerful. So
Can
ladies,
I
thank
just
you.
add one more
Oh,
thing that I
sure,
think is really important
100%.
for the individual that asks the question? It's okay too to do a recalibration. So if it is within a department or an individual or individuals that are giving the criticism, it just even scheduling time with them and say, I want to recalibrate, and let's have a really healthy discussion and be vulnerable to say, I may not have been actively listening and I may have been taking this personally, and that's okay, but let's have some dialogue. Just put it on the table.
I
And
love
I
that.
think people would really, really respond. Just recalibrate. So thanks, Kyler.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that also shows the vulnerability there, and which we all know is the glue to trust, to creating that trust of, saying I might not have responded in the best way, and showcasing that you're not perfect either, and that relationship is important enough to you to do that recalibration. So excellent advice. Um as we close out, I want to give both of you an opportunity to kind of put a capstone on this conversation and tell us what is your superpower when it comes to the power of perception.
Ooh,
I
okay.
know. We'll go to you first, Judith.
All right. So this is a very interesting question, right? So you led me to the right point, which is after a lot of soul searching and understanding myself, especially as a young leader. So I believe authenticity and embracing vulnerability has been my guiding light at this point in time. It has helped me understand myself, serve others better, and it's also helping my clients in the journey as well. So I believe in
Beautiful.
that. Yeah,
Lovely.
thank
Thank you
you.
for that. What about you, Erin?
That was a great answer, Judith. I love that. And you really do. You bring my blood pressure down
Oh,
when
I
you
know.
so
Thank
thank
you.
you.
They're gonna
Thank
call
you.
you every day in the morning. Where
I
did
know
you
I'm
go,
going to
Dave?
fire my chief happiness officer, the golden retriever, and just call you when I need that dopamine rush and
Oh,
the blood pressure down. So what my superpower is, I believe, is the awareness of nonverbal and how it
Mm,
impacts the way people communicate, and really listening on two tracks. People might be saying something, but you can watch them even if you are in front of 1,000 people. If you're watching the nonverbals, their facial expressions, the way they're using their bodies. Are they
mhm.
leaning forward? Are they leaning back? It can really help you understand when people aren't verbally speaking up. It can help you understand where people are. And it's Judith, I'm going to use that conscious pause to check in.
Mhm.
So if I'm in front of 1,000 people and I see I'm saying something there and there's you know what? I'm going to pause here because I just saw, you just have, and you have to be vulnerable and open. So I think that's my superpower, is understanding we all talk on more than one track.
For sure. And I'll share mine, which is the gift of imperfection and the amount of learnings that we can have from that, not only personally for ourselves as a leader, and then as a project as well. Sometimes those blessings of imperfection are how we actually mine the best nuggets of strategy. So, what an amazing conversation. If you want to follow Erin and Judith on LinkedIn, I highly recommend that. I'm going to pop up just a few QR codes here to show you the True Potential Group, which Erin is the president of. They have great content as well, and then also our Digital Enterprise Operations Bootcamp, which is the QR code right up here too, is something that we're hosting on the 31st. It's a completely free digital transformation bootcamp. You can sign up, get your 2024 strategies in line. And get ready to really have a very positive year around digital transformation and company culture and in general. But thank you to the audience for all your great questions. As always, I will go through each one of those comments and offer support and resources. I know Erin and Judith will likely do the same since they are so passionate about the subject. But we really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much to Erin and Judith. And we will see you next time.